say a few words in Croatian before we continue in English. To welcome our, indeed I'm very excited to greet Dr. Vandana Shiva in Croatia for the first time in Kina Europa. Dakle, dobra večer, drago nam je da ste došli u ovu specijalnu priliku da dr. Vandana Shiva nam je posjetio ova kritična vremena, kako nam je pokazao ovaj video i upravo ono na čemu ona radi, to je vrlo dobro ilustrirano. And now I'll continue in English, first to start with Jibaya and to welcome you. And I don't know how to start this introduction with such an incredible profile you have. And maybe the best is to start with my inspiration of you as being an embodiment of courageous activism, of science, as I said yesterday, of being rejecting to be afraid because you cannot tolerate injustice, so you have to act. This is really, really exciting that we can reach you here. More on a professional side that Dr. Vandana Shiva did her PhD actually in quantum theory. That after that she has collected interdisciplinary research in environmental policy and science and technology. She has founded independent institute, the Research Institute for Science, very importantly in 1991 started the movement Madania and the movement for freedom of seeds, that has engaged her to work with more than 70,000 farmers in her home country of India. This movement has, of course, spread all around the world and has become very much international. I mute my glasses. Great. Time magazine identified you as environmental heroine in 2003. Forbes magazine in 2010 identified you as one of the top 7 most powerful women on the globe. Your books, we cannot cite them all, but from the violence of green revolution, monocultures of the mind, soil not oil, the water wars, stolen harvest, the biopiracy, staying alive, that has given us, women especially, this encouragement to believe in our own powers. As we know, we are very the founder of ecofeminism, so this is very exciting for all feminists in the room. Your movement for diverse women for diversity was launched back in Slovakia in 1998. Very prestigious award, Alternative Nobel Prize, by Livelihood Award, Order of the Golden Ark, Global 500 Award of United Nations and Earth Day International Award, Lennon Honor Grant for Peace, awarded by Yoko Ono in 2009, Sydney Peace Prize in 2010, and so on. The list of awards goes on. So it's a really great pleasure and excitement to greet you here, Vandana. But
thank you so much, Rina. And even I couldn't have imagined that I would today be in Zagreb attending a Subversive Festival, because it wasn't in my horizon, it wasn't in my plans. And one day Rina walks into my office and asks if I would come. And it somehow worked out in spite of all odds and all kinds of difficulties. So I'm very happy to join you here, because if we are to stay alive, we have to be subversive. To be subversive of the order that is creating disorder. We have to be subversive of the false idea of separation that makes us believe that we are separate from the earth. contemporary dominant thought for the last 200 years, 250 years, has been the construction of separation. And in South Africa, they evolved the term apartheid, which means separation. And if you take it to the level of our separation from nature, we will call it eco-apartheid. Of course, we can't be separate from nature, because we can't be separate from that breath. Her breath, which becomes our breath. We can pretend, and if it's dead matter, transformed into magical value by human brilliance. And when I started to read all the texts, whether it was Bacon or Newton, the founding of the Royal Society of England, I found there was a deliberate construction of denying nature being alive. And as Evelyn Fox Keller, who's one of the best historians of science of our times, wrote, science has been produced, and of course she's referring to mechanical science, because we've had scientists like Barbara McClintock, who could see nature as alive, and said, the reason I know so much, and she got a Nobel Prize in biology, she said, the reason I know the organism is I feel for the organism. I become one with the organism, and then I understand how it's functioning. And she got a Nobel Prize for this phenomenon of jumping genes. The genes move horizontally. So this is what Evelyn Fox Keller wrote in her book Reflections on Gender in Science. Science has been produced by a particular subset of the human race that is almost entirely by white middle-class males. For the founding fathers of modern science, the reliance on the language of gender was explicit. They sought a philosophy that deserved to be called masculine, that could be distinguished from its ineffective predecessors by its virile powers, its capacity to bind nature to man's service and make her his slave. And all of the writings, Bacon, Boyle, talk about nature in captivity. Nature reveals her secrets better when she is not treated gently. And Bacon actually had the cheek, I would call it, of writing a book called The Masculine Birth of Time. In India we talk of time as Kali. And of course Kali as time is not linear. She's circular, and Kals come and Kals go, the ages come and ages go. But he actually thought he was birthing a new time. And that birthing of the new time then became the idea of Superman able to control nature. But it was also a time to say knowledge in which you related to nature was somehow effeminate. And it's not an accident that women burnt as witches were the most knowledgeable women of their times. They were the healers, they were the midwives, they were the ones on whom society depended. And then they created the Royal Society, and Oldenburg, who was the first secretary, wrote that the Royal Society's main objective was to raise a masculine philosophy whereby the mind of man may be ennobled with the knowledge of solid truths. But the living nature is not solid in any way. She's very fluid. Her tides move. Her rivers flow. Her air circulates. And the amazing cycles of water, of hydrology, of nitrogen, of carbon are about understanding this movement. And yet that movement was taken away. Nature was turned into dead matter, immutable particles to be controlled. There's another writer, Caroline Merchant, who wrote a book called The Death of Nature, just before I'd written Staying Alive. And she said this removal of a living nature, of an organic assumption about the cosmos, constituted the death of nature, the most far-reaching effect of the scientific revolution. Because nature was now viewed as a system of dead inert particles moved by external rather than inherent forces, the mechanical framework itself could legitimate the manipulation of nature, of corporate person. And at the time of the East India Company, it was to be called the limited liability company because the issue was to limit the liability. Now it is zero liability and absolute rights. Zero liability to the people of a society and the harm you do to them, the harm you do to the earth, which is why there's such a desperation to dismantle all laws that ensure welfare, human rights, labor rights, and environmental protection. Everywhere in the world, each of us thinks it's only happening to our societies, but it's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere. And it's being driven by the same people who are writing the rules. The Monsanto's writing the rules of intellectual property, but also writing the rules of dismantling safety laws. The TTIP, when you have this whole thing of TTIP as a Trojan horse, the big issue for Europe in TTIP is how to dismantle the biosafety laws and the health and environmental standards. Because the United States has none related to GMOs. And I know this very well because I had a big role in shaping the convention on biological diversity. Those were days where, no one knew in '92 what's coming with biotechnology, but I had started to look at it. And I would brief my government, other governments, and we got into the Convention on the Protection of Species, a clause called 19.3, to say the new technologies of genetic engineering must be assessed for their impact on biodiversity, public health, later socioeconomic issues also. Became a definition of safety. President Bush Sr. walked out of Rio, stomped out of the hall, and said, I will not let my biotechnology industry be affected. And they went back and got an order passed, which is called substantial equivalence. Substantial equivalence basically says, pretend a genetically engineered organism is like a non-genetically engineered organism. Just assume that, and then don't look, don't see, don't find, and say, safe. No proof of harm. We found proof of harm wherever a study was done. Dr. Seralini's studies on organ failure, Irina Evnakova's studies on tumors, Dr. Arpad Sarkostai's studies on intestinal damage. Studies are there. But of course, deeper than that is what I call an ontological schizophrenia. An ontological schizophrenia in the sense that you genetically engineer an organism and you say, it's mine, I made it, it's never existed before, it's my creation and my invention. Therefore, I should have intellectual property rights. And then society says, can we at least know what it does to the environment and our health? No, it's just like nature made it. No difference. How can the same thing be natural and not natural? How can the same thing be novel and not novel? And we are living with this kind of schizophrenia at every level. The two examples of campaigns we have right now. So, our wonderful chutneys, our coriander chutney, our mint chutney, provide a lot of vitamin A. They're trying to engineer rice to provide vitamin A. Now I'm sure when, your mother said, eat your carrots, because it has carotene, which is a precursor of vitamin A. The greens and the oranges and the yellows, that's what we learned as kids. They want to go to the white and make it yellow. And pretend they will overcome the deficiencies they have created through a model of agriculture that destroys biodiversity. So this golden rice, my dear friend Kumi had entered earlier, and Greenpeace, we have done a lot of work because we call that a Trojan horse too. A Trojan horse to take over the rice seeds and cultivation of the world. And can you imagine what royalties could be made out of that? When just with cotton, every year 200 million is taken out of India. 10 billion is taken out of US farmers. 2.2 billion is taken out of the farmers of Brazil. So we call it a Trojan horse because it's so inefficient that you'd have to eat 3 kilograms of rice to meet your daily requirement, when all you need is one little spoonful of a delicious chutney. Stupidity? You would agree, stupidity? And now they've come up with a GMO banana, even crazier.